Hey everyone, Selwyn here from windstrength.com. On this video, I'll be talking about the first 2 days of week 10 of the current training cycle. Called a bit of an audible here, and we switched over to daily recordings of the trainings. This will be the first one where I've actually missed the training window. I thought about this on day 3, so we're going back and recording this video so I can capture both day 1 and 2. I'll do the voiceovers for the first 2 days, and then from here we'll have some different change of format where we're going to be uploading a training vlog every single day, well, after every single day's workout. So today, like usual, starting off with our squats and following that up with some overhead presses. Super stoked for the first day of the week, setting a new training personal record for the squat, which was at 490 pounds. Not sure what was happening today, call it a bit conservatively. So with that in mind, we did err on the side of less is more. 490 went up it felt quite easy relative to what it should have felt like. So with that in mind, I could have probably squeezed out maybe 5 more pounds, hit that 5 plate benchmark, but I did again want to err on the side of conservative lifting, just because I was not suspecting the weight to go up so easily. Might have to look at the training logs or look back and see what affected this and see if we can replicate this in the future. But super stoked with the results. Unfortunately, the overhead press wasn't as successful. We just hit a training max of 205 today, and again, not like the other week. So a little bit of a drop there in the weight, but I'll definitely take that squat PR. So that's awesome to see. Some of those training accumulations coming together, and we're seeing some advances in the training there. The second day was the extra day, so we just worked more on our power cleans, as well as some upper back and some abs, and as well as some sandbag presses. So nothing crazy there. Again, more of a GPP arm back ab day with a couple with like one strongman movement thrown in there. Nothing crazy, just keeping that blood flowing and wanting to really work on that power clean technique. And here we have the first movement for the week, which is squats like usual. Again, switching back over to that lower bar back squat. We're showing some warm-ups here, so this will be 470 pounds for a single. Coming up quite smooth. Today's squats actually felt really good. I'm not too sure what's happening, but the whole lead up to the squat movement felt quite nice, a lot smoother than it has in the past, definitely. So I wanted to take advantage of that. So here we have 485 pounds for a single. Again, I think I was focusing on spreading the knees out, spreading the floor, and I think I got a handle on the bracing. I don't think there was too much loss in power in that bracing technique, because we see the back maintains that same angle throughout the entire squat. Here we have our new training PR, 490 pounds for a single. Wanted to play it a little bit conservative. I think it was possible that I could go up to probably 495 pounds, but again, with this weight felt relatively light compared to what the weights have in the past. I just wanted to play conservative and take advantage of the newfound energy without playing it too far. Again, I think potentially depth was slightly an inch or two too high. The knees stayed out, and I think it came up quite quick relative to other movements there. So here we have the back offsets, 405 pounds for a set of 3. Yeah, so I'm thinking what's happening here is that my upper torso is staying at a smooth angle the whole way up, which means that I'm not losing any power between the floor and the barbell. You'll also notice that the knees are tracking quite well with the toes, so the knees aren't caving in for the most part on the descent or ascent of the lift. You see them tracking nicely. They slide back just a tiny bit on the way up, but I think if you look at the squat as a whole, the body is moving in unison right now, which I think is the key to making this squat feel relatively light compared to previous weeks. Here we're starting off with the overhead press, so we have here 205 pounds. This will be our top single for the day. And again, the overhead press is something I've been struggling with in recent years, I guess, and more recently as well. We did hit that 225 pound PR, but I've only been able to lift that once in the last month. So the
PRs, this heavy singles have been slowing off, but the volume, which is here, is at 185 pounds for a triple, has been moving along just fine. We've been seeing some progress. The issue is that we've been experiencing a bit more of that vageling or that blacking out happening with the heavy lifts. So I think we're resetting again with the overhead press. Again, one of my weaker lifts, and I think that comes down to the bracing. As good as it was at the squat, I think technically it's not just there for that execution of the lift for the overhead press, and we're just trying to battle that movement here. So we keep pushing on, as it were, and we keep trying to fight and figure out what's wrong here. You see my back starts to do that arching thing, so we're losing a lot of support there. So now we're moving on to the extra day of the week, completely unscheduled. We're starting off with some power cleans. Again, this is one of those movements that I've been trying to work on in recent months. So here we're focusing on reps of 3. Starting off light, really wanting to get in a lot more reps than I want to do some heavy weights. One advice I can give you right now is if you have a thinner belt or a Velcro belt, that's a perfect time to use them, is during your Olympic style lift, just because if you do have that big buckle belt or that big lever belt, then that buckle or lever is really going to get in the way. If you have one of those Velcro belts, they're great because they're super thin. Even a really thin, like a 5mm leather belt, is going to be perfect for this. And I'll even still, as you can see, wrap that buckle onto the side so we can rotate that so it stays out of the way as much as possible. But back to the power cleans, it's one of those movements where I think you definitely need to have more reps and focus on technique and explosiveness before you start trying to add weight onto the bar, because there comes a point, I know it for me at the very least, where the explosiveness kind of disappears. And here we have that top set's at 175 pounds, and that's really where that explosiveness starts to diminish. I don't feel like I can fire up as quickly as I can when the weight's a lot lighter, obviously. So much like when we throw, say, a baseball and you compare that to throwing a shot put, there becomes definitely a different technique when you start to get that lift heavy. But if you can't even throw the baseball effectively, you won't be able to throw that shot put effectively too, as a weird analogy. And then we just supersetted that off with some power off presses here with the band, just to activate a tiny bit of abs for stabilization. And then here we have our final superset, which is starting off with some reverse flies. Just wanting to get a bit more activation in the rhomboids there and the scapula, just to fire up a bit more rear delts as well, and hopefully use this as kind of some supplemental movements to the deadlift and really focus on getting that upper back tightness and making sure that that upper back stays locked in where it's meant to. I just like the chest supported version of this so that you don't really tax the lower back as much, especially when we have extra deadlift days during the week. This way you're able to kind of train isolated movement without stressing any extra part of the body there. That supersets with some sandbag overhead pressing. Again, a great movement for getting that practice down for some odd object sizes and trying to figure out where that center of gravity goes and how your balance is throughout the entire lift, just because it is an odd shape and the sand does tend to move around no matter how well you kind of pack that in the lift. I generally don't like to use a belt for this. Again, much like the Olympic lifts, they tend to get in the way, and with the sandbag you're going to have that round back to start off with, and I think the thicker belts are going to get in the way of that range of motion there, with the back being super flexed as you come up initially. But that might change if I'm able to get some heavy sandbags, or if we're able to figure out how to press some heavier weights overhead. But in the meantime, practicing on some higher rep movements, really getting that technique down and really driving some conditioning and some GPP style workout technique here. Trying to figure out that balance too. And we're just finishing this off with some chin-ups, sets of 10. Last week we did weighted chin-ups. This week last week we did weighted chin-ups with low reps. Now we're going to do unweighted chin-ups with relatively high reps. So again, one's not better than the other, just vary them week to week and you'll kind of get best of both worlds, so that you can still progress with that strength, with that muscular strength, as well as that muscular endurance.